What's going on? Craig Bennett, aka CashKeg here with DFS Army. I'm about to break down a Week 12 Monday Night Football showdown between Seattle and Philadelphia, and this is going to be FanDuel edition. I'm only going to talk about FanDuel. I'll do a DraftKings one later. It should be a good one. We got some good news out here. First, we'll go through some injury news, and then we'll build some lineups, maybe talk about cash games and ways we could probably get different a little bit in some GPPs. So let's head on right over there and we'll go through the injury news. First, if you're not a subscriber to my YouTube channel, please hit that subscribe button. Smash that like button if you can. If you're on Twitch, if you hit that follow button, I'd really appreciate it. Lets me know that you want me to keep doing these videos. So let's head on over there and check out FanDuel. All right, injury news first. Chris Carson is back, so we're not going to have to worry about the backfield here with what's going on. If we're going to have to play, DJ Dallas or that whole nonsense. So Chris Carson's back. Hyde's going to back him up, so we know we don't have to mess with any of that. It kind of takes Hyde out of play here on FanDuel because of the price. He's $11K. Zach Ertz is doubtful, so it's going to be all of Goddard and Rodgers that you can get. Deshaun Jackson is out. David Moore is questionable. Again, it's really the Lockett Metcalf show, so he's more viable on DraftKings to me than FanDuel anyways, so I don't really have too much interest in him. Greg Olsen is out. Again, we're going to look at more Disley and Hollister over here at the tight end position, and on FanDuel we can look at that a little bit. And Swain is also for Seattle. He's also questionable. So if you were to sit again on FanDuel, I'm not really worried about him anyways. The big news, I guess, that's going to dictate this slate that we are not quite sure yet is at the quarterback position here with Philly. Now, this game is sitting at a 48.5 over-under. Seattle's favored by 6.5. Now, the news on the street is Jalen Hurts is seeing first snaps with the first team. So if he does get the go this week and they decide to shelf Carson Wentz, because let's be honest, Carson Wentz has been an absolute dumpster fire this year. He's just not getting it done. And I understand. Let's take a shot, and throw Hurts out there. Hurts is a dual threat quarterback. He played in Bama, played in OU. He's going to run the ball. So if we do get the start, I don't know how you don't hit the lock button here on Jalen Hurts over here on FanDuel. If we want to look at his salary, he is $6,500 over here at FanDuel. If we get the start here for Jalen Hurts, I mean, it's hard not to just lock this guy in. And I don't think I'll be playing him up in the MVP. If you wanted to get different maybe tournaments and maybe he has a massive game, I think he's better suited, though, for probably your flex. And he's probably, by far the best cheap option you're going to get. If you're going to get a quarterback for $6,500 on FanDuel, you just kind of plug him in. So we're probably going to have a ton of ties here over on FanDuel. We throw him in here at the flex position. Russell Wilson, again, 16.5. I think for cash games, he's probably going to be your cash game MVP. Usually with the slates when we're talking about FanDuel or Seattle especially, we know where the production's going to go, and it's Wilson's going to get his. The hard thing is predicting which one of Lockett and Metcalf are going to go off. Just looking at these guys, $14K for Metcalf, $13K for Lockett. If we look at the last 4 weeks, Metcalf's been getting about a little over 8 targets a game, 6 receptions for about 80 plus yards, 4 touchdowns. We want touchdowns on FanDuel. Lockett, on the other hand, seeing around a little over 7 targets, 5.5 receptions, 50 yards, and 1 touchdown. So Metcalf's been getting it done a little bit more. You save about $1,000 on Lockett. It's really hard to run both of them in the same lineup. just because it seems like one of them goes off more than the other one. We should see probably Darius Slay up on Metcalf, Roby Coleman, probably on Lockett. It doesn't really bother me too much. Thanks for the follow there, Swag. It doesn't, those matchups don't scare me at all. Metcalf is just an ungodly human. I mean, he can just do anything he wants to. So, again, I was trying to lean on what I would do in cash games. I think I'll put Wilson up front. You got to plug Hurts in if he's going to start. And then it's like, to me, I want one of these wide receivers. We'll talk about the running backs here in a second, but I think the decisions you're going to make here are going to be based on this wide receiver position. Even in cash games, I want one of these wide receivers. I think we can play Chris Carson. He's 11-5. And we can play him with him. But, Philly's pretty good against the run. So, I lean more towards just the pass catchers here. I think you can play him in cash games. I would be apt more to paying up for one of these guys, though. So let's throw Metcalf in here. We got 11-5 left. And so on the Philly side, though, if we look at the wide receiver position, the one thing that scares me if Hurts is going to quarterback is generally, especially a dual threat quarterback like him, I don't know how many chances he's going to take down the field. So maybe he leans more on his tight ends. So maybe we see more targets out of Goddard or Rodgers. Goddard's only seen over the last 4 weeks, 4 targets, 3 receptions, about 40 yards a game and a touchdown. He's $10K, so it's not like we get a big price discrepancy on him. So, he's expensive. But anytime we're going to get a quarterback that's going to make his first start, I tend to more lean on these tight ends. I don't think he's going to take too many chances on the field. They get an implied team total of 21. And he's a dual threat. He can sneak in the end zone if they get down in the red zone. So I would take a chance at some of these tight ends in tournaments and Goddard and Rodgers. They run 2 tight end sets a lot. Goddard's going to be more popular for sure, but I would look at him. But in cash games, again, you have Chris Carson here, 11-5. I don't mind plugging him in cash. If we think that, this game, maybe Wilson and Metcalf get a couple touchdowns, get up, and then Chris Carson comes in and maybe some mop-up duty. Again, Carlos Hyde is completely out of play. The only way he's going to absolutely get there is if there's an injury for Chris Carson, so I would just take him completely out of my pool. But this leaves you with about 11-5. So it leaves you in a really awkward price point here, even in cash games. So say if we take Metcalf and we slide down, and we want to play, Lockett, leaves us around 12-5. Again, another awkward price point that it's, you're basically left with Goddard here. So if you don't play Chris Carson and maybe you still go up to Metcalf, we can always look on the other side of the ball with Sanders. Really, Sanders is, it kind of, with these dual threat quarterbacks with Hurts, it can kind of open up the lanes for Sanders as well. If he's gonna run any kind of option RPO with Sanders, then maybe it opens up a few lanes for him if they're worried about the running back. So it could be interesting in Sanders. Again, over the last 4 weeks, he's averaged about 15 rush attempts and had about 5 targets as well. So guy I don't mind. So if we throw him in here, say we're going to go Hurts and Sanders, and it's going to be run heavy. Leaves us about 9,500 left here. So we can look at a guy like maybe Fulgham or Rieger. Again, Fulgham I worry a little bit about, again, throwing the ball down the field for Hurts. So I might not want to lean too much there. Maybe Rieger, or maybe you come down here in cash games and you snag one of these kickers, which wouldn't be a bad idea. The problem is if we get off Metcalf and we go down to Lockett, it still only leaves us like 10-5. So maybe then if you want to get up to Goddard there as well. So it's a real awkward price point, even if you put Hurts in there. If you take Wilson out, and maybe you go strictly, in GPPs, I think in my MVP slot in GPPs, I'm looking basically at Wilson, Lockett, Metcalf on the Seattle side. I mean, you got to build these with game scripts. So if I was going to look at how these were, if I feel like Seattle's going to stomp Philly here, I definitely want a bunch of those guys up there. So I don't really want any of Carson up at MVP. I guess if you were looking to get different, maybe 5-10%. But in cash games, you're definitely going to put Wilson up at MVP, Hurts, and then you're going to make a decision, I think, of one of Lockett or Metcalf. One of them tends to go off. If we took a build where we didn't take any of them and we want to take both running backs here, maybe we put in Carson. We got Carson and Sanders, and it leaves us with $12K. Again, it puts us in an awkward price point. You don't really get up much here because you're right at Carlos Hyde, which you can't play with Chris Carson because he's just going to back him up, maybe come down in the third down here. So it's just way overpriced. So you can't really look at that either. So that's why in this position, I would rather come up to Metcalf or Lockett, lock him in, and then this 9,500 range with Rieger, Fulgham, Myers, or Elliott. I would probably lean this as a cash build. Wilson, Hurts, Metcalf, maybe Sanders on the other side, and Myers. These last two positions are going to be a little hard, but that's kind of what I'm looking at. Like I said, I don't know if I would run any Philly up at the top at the MVP position. It's just you'd have to consider that Philly's going to one of these guys is going to have to outscore Wilson, and one of those guys is going to have to get multiple touchdowns. Maybe Jalen Hurts busts out and runs an RPO and runs for 80 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that would be really the only option that he would be up at top, in my opinion. Russ hasn't really been cooking lately, and then maybe they don't need him here. Only put up 20 fantasy points against Arizona, 11 against the Rams, 24 against Buffalo. So they might not need him here. And so maybe this is a spot where you don't take Russ, and Russ just kind of does enough to win the game. And we look at a scenario where he's not crushing. And then maybe we throw Metcalf up here, and he gets 2 touchdowns, but Russ only throws 2 touchdowns, and another one comes on the ground. So we throw Chris Carson in here. We got $14K left here. Then we look at like a Miles Sanders. Then you're at a price point where you got $14.5 left. It doesn't happen too often where Lockett is and Metcalf both go off. You throw him in there, you got $1,500 left. He had 17 fantasy points last game against Arizona, 9 for 9, 67 and a touchdown. Metcalf in that same game, he went 3 on 5 targets, 46 and a touchdown for 12 fantasy points. So maybe it's a situation where they both get there. It's tough. It really is tough. So I'm having a hard time building lineups where I don't have, both Wilson and Hurts in here just with a touchdown. Wilson could sneak it in as well. But I think your decision is going to be made. And don't, leaving money on the table, you're going to have a lot of lineups like that when you have a 6,500 Jalen Hurts and there's like a no man's land in this price point. No matter what you do, you're going to have lineups that are 1 to 2K off. So depends on where you want to land with that. Again, in cash games, I tend to want to run the quarterbacks and the running backs and maybe a kicker. In tournaments, we saw it last night. The Bears, oh my God, they just got absolutely trashed. But, in garbage time, I think on DraftKings we had one of the winning lineups was actually Montgomery. And again, got a lot of that garbage time. So on FanDuel, you don't have to worry about it too much, but he almost got there. Same with Robinson, almost got there in the captain and MVP in the garbage time, almost edged out Rodgers. So if you get a wide receiver that can score you a couple touchdowns and Metcalf gets 2 long bombs or whatever, then he could be in the optimal lineup at way less ownership, and you'd be sharing a lot less than Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson is going to have the most ownership up at MVP by far. Like it won't even be close. So that's just something you got to think about. I think, the next guy that'll have a ton, maybe you want to put, Sanders up there. Swaggy J says, you feel good about Hurts in your cash FanDuel. He gets some run, but how much? If they're going to start him, they're going to run him. That's the thing, Swaggy. So if it comes out that he's starting, again, he's getting all the first team reps. So if it comes out later today that he's going to be the guy, I don't see them pulling him for Wentz. They've moved on, especially in this first game here. So I have no problem just running Hurts out there. I'm not worried about it at all if we figure he's going to get the start. It's not going to be I don't believe it's going to be a timeshare deal by any stretch of the imagination. So that's where I'll just plug him in about every lineup, because you're not going to find a guy around 6,500 that's just not going to get there for you. So really, we just have to wait for the news. I think, if he's getting those snaps, I have a hard time thinking he's not going to start. So he's basically a lock button play. Again, if you want to sprinkle him up at MVP and think that he goes off and maybe he gets there in garbage time himself, maybe he sneaks 2 in and runs for 80 yards and something. So there's situations where that could happen. I still think I'm going to run heavy on the Seattle side. I'll have most of Russell Wilson, Metcalf, Lockett. I don't think I'll take too much Chris Carson up at MVP just because Philly is pretty good against the run. I don't think I need to go there. So, I play those 3 guys and maybe Hurts on the other side. I don't have any wide receivers or tight ends that I'm like dying to play at the MVP position by any stretch of the imagination. So, I would say be one of those guys. And you hope that it's one of the wide receivers that goes off in either Metcalf or Lockett, just because, you'll share with a lot less people. And this thing's going to be duplicated on FanDuel. When you got a guy, if Hurts does start at 6,500, there's just no way around it. So that's just one thing that, again, part of what we have to wait on for information-wise for later in the day. I'm going to do a DraftKings video here in a little bit. It's a little bit different build. We do things a little bit differently there. But I do want to stress, when we get to DraftKings one, even on FanDuel, I think the optimal lineup last night had Montgomery up at captain with Green Bay defense, and a bunch of skill position players. So as rules are nice, like if you're going to have Hyde in your pool, I would make a rule with no Hyde and Carson together. I think sometimes people rule themselves completely out of contention to have a solo ship lineup. You make so many rules that it actually kills your upside of having a solo ship. So as I'm in favor in some rules, sometimes I'm not. Like I said, a lot of things can happen in showdowns. And when you start making a ton of those rules, it's limiting your lineups. And I would rather maybe adjust the projections a little bit, how I see the model going, like how I see the game going. So if I see the game going really heavy on Seattle and I think Metcalf's going to get there a few times, adjust some things. We got some new tools over at DFS Army that we had built. It's called the Showdown Dominator, and it is a really cool tool that we can build where you can adjust how you see the game going. Let's slide this in here real quick. It's not showing up real great. I'll pull it up in the DraftKings one later. But with this tool that you can use with this Showdown Dominator, you can adjust the points of the game. What do you think the score is going to be? How many touchdowns? How many field goals? And it's just a really cool tool, and you can adjust things and then import those projections right into the domination station. So Hunter did a really good job building that thing. It's really awesome. And again, I'll pull that tool up when we start going over the DraftKings one later today. Again, it's over. You got to be part of DFS Army. Head on over there. Use promo code CashKeg. Save yourself 20%. And again, you can adjust all kinds of things on that tool to build game scripts and then build your lineups, because that's an easier way to, maybe if you don't feel comfortable making your projections, it's a way to do it. And then you can import those projections in and run some lineups. But And again, we'll have cheat sheets over there. I'll do a DraftKings video later today. But I appreciate you guys. And if you don't mind, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and I will see you on the flip side. Deuces.